Very good afternoon to everyone for taking out the precious time to attend the webinar today. So, Kaustubh, I represent XM Cyber, and today we are going to briefly firstly talk about 6-7 slides about how XM Cyber can help organizations secure your critical assets before even the attacks are going to happen. And in quickly around 15 odd minutes, my colleague Arshad would show you a small brief demo of the XM Cyber platform as well. So XM Cyber is an Israel-based headquarter company formed back in 2016, and it was founded by the top executives from the cyber intelligence community. They were on the offensive side, and that is wherein the XM Cyber as in a company was born. But in around 2021, we were completely funded by a group called as Schwartz Group, which is the fourth largest retailer in the globe. So they are headquartered in Germany. So the question might come in why a retail company is investing into a cybersecurity company. Recently, Schwartz Group was coming out with their own souvenir cloud for the entire European Union, which is live now called as Stack IT. And that's wherein they were using XM Cyber platform for many years. And that is wherein they felt that XM Cyber is the best suit. And you could see some of the major clients that have been using XM Cyber for many plus years across the globe. So to name a few, I would say about Motorola, Virgin Media, Bank of England, Telefonica. So we have customers across all domains, all industries that have been using XM Cyber for many years. And we have major partnerships to offer through our some elite partners like TCS, HCL, IBM. And we also work with the consulting companies because they use or they leverage the XM platform to help their customers achieve what they want to achieve. And also XM Cyber is a SOC 2 compliant company. Why so? Because XM is a SaaS platform or a SaaS solution. And for that, we need to be SOC 2 compliant. We are also ISO 27000 compliant. And we have taken utmost care of, even though if we are a SaaS platform, our data centers are in individual countries, wherein for India, it's AWS India Mumbai data center, wherein the data doesn't go out of the country. So what XM Cyber does and what challenges it is helping to address at the organization level. So what we have seen that organizations currently are having a disconnect, which is a security disconnect. So why so and what is that disconnect? So organizations are already having different tools, different technologies, which are being deployed and they are giving lots and lots of findings back to the organization, IT organization, CISO organization, operations, cloud organization. But the challenge is that these findings are consumed by the organizations on an individual and silo basis. So what do I mean out here? That of course, organization will have some or the other vulnerability program. They definitely would be having an active directory or they would be having some tool for misconfiguration identification. But all these findings are being consumed independently and in silos. And this is what is the disconnect that we have seen, because what you as a security leader or an IT leader see, the attackers are seeing exactly the opposite of this, and they are leveraging and they are benefiting from all this siloed approach. So attackers are happy to join the dots between different findings which are been there, like a findings in your active directory, misconfiguration, vulnerabilities. They are joining those dots and they are creating an attack path within the organization. And that is what is the benefit for an attacker. And it's a disconnect in the approach that the organizations has. And if we look at the impact of this disconnect or this approach, it's huge in nature because there are lots of findings which comes into the organization. There are periodic pen testing, vulnerability assessment that needs to be done. And at the end, still the organizations are getting breached. So that is one of the biggest challenge and worry and concern for the leaders. And top onto this, what are the findings that are coming out on a monthly basis? So there are 11,000 new security exposures that are discovered on an average every month that attackers could exploit. There are 94% of critical assets in an average organization that can be simply compromised in less than 4 hops from the initial breach point. And of course, the 75% of the remediations which are being done currently with the current approach are at dead ends and they are wasted efforts. Why so? Because the remediations primarily are happening with respect to the CVE, CVSA scoring. So there is no mechanism to know whether X vulnerability is going to affect my critical asset or my crown jewels. Because what we understand is that for every organization, the major task is to prevent and protect the critical asset or crown jewels which are there within the organization. Those crown jewels can be on-prem on a server. Those crown jewels can be in an S3 bucket somewhere lying in the cloud. So the main agenda is to prevent and protect the crown jewels and critical assets. And with this, all numbers which are being seen, like 11,000 new exposures, 75% of remediation going at the dead ends, it is a worrisome situation for the leaders and the IT ops, and that is wherein XM Cyber comes into the picture. In with XM Cyber, what we actually do is that we help organizations do continuous exposure management. So before I get into this slide, I will just brief about what Gartner has started saying around a year back, exactly in July 2022, through their framework called as CTEM, which is a continuous threat exposure management framework, which they have come out with. So they are saying to organizations and leaders that looking at vulnerabilities is not sufficient. Even taking an RBVM approach, which is a risk-based vulnerability management approach, is also not going to help. So organizations and leaders needs to start thinking from an attacker perspective. What does that mean? Is that it is asking security leaders to think like an attacker so that organizations and leaders can be 2 steps ahead of the attacker when they are trying to exploit or when they are trying to breach any organization. And that's where in XM Cyber comes into picture, because we are an assume breach technology. So what does this mean? Is that we are assuming that there is going to be a breach tomorrow in an organization. And what is that an attacker can exploit? How can he do a lateral movement? What all he can exploit, and will he be able to reach my crown jewels? Is what we show exactly via the diagram. So current diagram or the slide which is been showing that I have multiple different networks. So I have a corporate network, I have my DMZ data center, I have something on my cloud, and then my crown jewels as in PCI and SAP servers. So tomorrow we are assuming that one of my assets is actually a breach point. And from that breach point, how is an attacker going to move laterally? So in the example like we are seeing now, first movement can be exploiting a vulnerability. Then he can move to the data center, exploiting stolen credentials, credential reuse, and multiple different attack paths are being shown here. And we are showing that this is how an attacker can reach to your crown jewels. Also, what we are doing is that we are not only showing the vulnerabilities or the attack paths, but we are also helping organizations do show the remediation as well. So if organizations would have had a standard vulnerability management program, one of this vulnerability would have been shown as the critical vulnerability and people would have started working there. But we see that that vulnerability is not actually moving to my critical asset. So in here, what we as an organization use a fundamental called as a choke point. So what is a choke point? A choke point is an asset which actually is having a direct access for an attacker to the crown jewel. So in here, if you could see two red points which are highlighted are identified as choke point within this entire attack path. And we are suggesting to remediate at these two. And once it is been done, you can see that 85 to 90% of my attack paths or attack graphs are remediated and mitigated. So the advantage here is that we are just remediating at two choke points, but we are getting a value of more than 85% of my attack paths dying. Also, my 85 to 90% of my critical assets are secured. Rest all vulnerabilities or remediations or the assets which are being shown can be manually patched individually as well. But the main intent is to reduce the efforts and maximize the security program. So that is what we do under the continuous exposure management platform. And Harshad will show this during the live demonstration as well when we get into the demo. So XM Cyber helps enterprises or organizations in multiple different use cases. So the key use cases that we foresee that our customers are leveraging and they are helping themselves with the XM Cyber platform is about digital transformation. So because most of the organizations are currently moving to the cloud and they are into a transformation on the digital aspect. So that is wherein we come heavily and we help organizations to understand what is the risk from the digital transformation as well. Supply chain and third party risk, which is a very common and a major risk which is there with the enterprises, whoever are engaged with the third party or a supply chain module which they have. Vulnerability prioritization is a very big pain for most of the leaders, and I would say this is a challenge for the IT operations team because there are tools, there are technologies which are giving lots and lots of findings. But when it comes to the remediation part, which is a job of IT ops, so they are bogged up with lots of efforts because there is no specific direction given. So in here, as we saw with the choke point approach of XM Cyber, we are helping organizations do vulnerability prioritization as well. And there are few other use cases which next please, which can be addressed with the XM Cyber platform is about ransomware readiness. It can be about cyber risk reporting because most of the CISOs now are being asked very common question by the board. What is the risk posture of the organization? So we are showing a security score as well on the dashboard, which can be seen during the demonstration. And the major worry is about the ransomware. So wherever we talk to the CISOs a lot. And most of the CISOs very candidly accept that either an organization is already been breached or either it is going to get breached. And the major worry from most of the CISOs is about the ransomware. So we help organizations to know how well the organization is ready with respect to the ransomware attacks. So we can show the blast radius of a ransomware attack if it happens within the organization. So mergers acquisition also is one of the use cases. Before merging an organization, we can actually see how risky the entire environment is, infra is of that organization. So couple of case studies which are available on our website as well, but we have just taken one of those. So this is a case study of Schwartz Group. So as I said, they are the fourth largest retailer. They have different supply chain people. They have different third parties. They have integrations with the leading European Union banks as well. So they had lots and lots of challenges. And to name few of them was, firstly, they were growing very drastically because they have 30,000 retail outlets across Europe now. So when they started, it was not 30,000, but now it's 30,000. So they wanted to protect their growing ecosystem. As the stores grew, the third party suppliers, supply chain also has grown. And that was one of the challenge. And then they were moving on to the cloud environment, that to a multi and hybrid cloud. So that was one of the challenge that they wanted to have a secured cloud infrastructure. But yeah, just to wind up on the case study of Schwartz Group. So they had certain challenges which were being addressed by XM Cyber, like about the cost effectively helping them close the security gaps. And the most important part is XM Cyber is a proactive solution. So we are not a reactive solution, and also we are a non-intrusive solution. So XM Cyber is doing everything on a proactive basis and letting the organizations know in advance that tomorrow this can happen. And we are helping organizations to close those gaps proactively. Last but not the least, a lot of customers they do ask, is there any specific report and show what is the return of investment? So XM Cyber had tied up with Forrester last year, and they had done a detailed survey with 4 of our global customers, and it is called as an economic impact report, or a total impact report is what Forrester calls it out. So we will be happy to share it through the Epacts team back to everybody. But in that, the highlighting points were that the return of investment or the payback time for the organizations post deploying XM Cyber was around 6 months. And also the value was around 400% return of investment. The best part is 90% of reductions were been possibly seen of a severe breach if there is XM Cyber deployed. Why so? Because as I said, XM Cyber is a proactive solution, and we are not coming into like a forensics after the breach has happened. So that is one of the advantages. And there are multiple other different figures which are been highlighted in the report, which we would definitely share it across if anybody wants to have a look at it. People would definitely compare XM Cyber with different tools and technologies, but we are very much different that individual technologies that are just been seen on the dashboard or on the slide today. So we are leading a new converged market, because if you recollect the first slide about the security disconnect, so we don't want it to be a technology which is just creating one more layer and those findings are consumed siloedly. So we are into a converged market of vulnerability management, BAS or red teaming, auto red teaming, cloud security market, and also active directory security. So what at XM we are doing is that we are combining 4 different technologies, correlating the findings of those and presenting it onto the dashboard for the organizations to consume and get the results out of that. So that's the end of the slide deck, and I would then now hand it over to Harshad for his quick 15 odd minutes demo.
So guys, hi, this is Harshad here. I work as a technical director for XM Cyber. So I just started sharing of my screen. I hope you guys able to see my screen now. So first of all, XM Cyber, yes, it's a cloud-based SaaS-based platform, in fact, hosted out of India for catering the services around the Indian customers as well. Now, collection of data, there are 2 ways we collect the data. As Kaustubh said, we are a sensor-based technology. And when we say sensor, it's typically a very kind of a lightweight agent. I can show you the utilization of that particular sensor on your endpoints and servers as well. And the second way, whenever it comes to your cloud, like your public clouds like AWS, Azure, and GCP, we do connect to your cloud platforms by using APIs. So in that, we don't need any kind of a sensor to be deployed. It's just a read-only access to your cloud subscription, which captures all that information from your cloud instance and send it to our cloud platform for the processing. The another great advantage of platform, it is not only working, like it's not only giving visibility on your on-premise or only on cloud. In fact, we have an capability to provide you visibility across your hybrid environment, barring it is on-premise or it is cloud, or if it is your OT network as well. We do also have an provide you visibility of your IT OT environment as well. Having said that, as you can see on this particular screen, this is a dashboard when you log into our portal. On this, we have come up with a security score, which is an overall security score health of your organizations, which shows over here. Now, there is also a color scheme which has been provided like 0 to 59, which is like critical, 60 to 69, which is high, then medium, low, and info. Likewise, there are also options where you can have multiple scenarios to be created. There are predefined scenarios which has been available with the platform. As soon as you onboard your devices, your servers, your cloud instances, the predefined scenarios will pop up. But apart from that, in case if you want to have your own customized related scenarios, and scenarios are nothing but a simulations, basically, you can also create that. On this, I'm comparing the scenarios. You can see that you will be able to trending of these scenarios over the period of time, how they are behaving and all. You will also able to see the risk score or a security score is keep on changing it as well as I roll over the mouse. Now below that, you can see we have also on a dashboard, just for your ease, we have identified the scenarios which are at risk. We will show you over there so that you can directly see on which scenarios having an issues and you can go directly into that. Similarly, we also identify the assets which are at risk over here, as you can see, and the top choke points. Again, this is something very, very, very unique to XM Cyber platform only. This helps you a lot into your prioritization of your remediations. And when I say choke points are typically nothing but an entry point for an attacker from where attacker can gain an access to your critical data, critical servers. So we do identify that choke points. Apart from that, identifying the choke points, we do also provide you a remediations to be carried out. And when it comes to remediations, it is not only a patch-based remediations. In fact, we do provide you a non-patch-based remediations depending on the attack techniques which has been identified for these particular choke points. And likewise, in the end, you can see there are all top impacting attack techniques which can be also seen on this particular dashboard. Moving on to the next tab, which is Scenario Hub. If I click over here, you can see there are multiple scenarios which is already been created over here. And you can see there are different scores for each scenario, depending on how that scenario has been behaving. What are the findings or what are the vulnerabilities which we found within that scenarios? The best part of it, the platform is we do also do a AD security, Active Directory security, which is again unique of our solutions. And not only that, we also consider the different attack techniques related to your Active Directory, related to your cloud environment, related to your Kubernetes environment as well. So we do also correlate all that information, put it in a graphical format, which you will see in the upcoming tabs as well. And I will show you in detail how that also functions as well. So now on this screen, you can see there are multiple scenarios like AD related scenarios. There are scenarios which is related to your cloud related scenarios. So in this example, you can see we have created a scenario to identify if there is any uh, threat to my sensitive data S3 bucket. So we can also create that similar kind of a scenario over here. Similarly, there are Azure related scenarios as well as a GCP related scenarios as well. Now, there was one of the requests from one of our customers to identify if there is anything vulnerability related to Log4Shell. Say if there is any new vulnerability which is being exploited in the wild, and you wanted to find out if that is something affecting my environment, you can create a customized scenarios based on that. And similarly, we have also created Log4Shell related vulnerability related scenario as well. Now, finally, and most of the organizations which are more interested to find out how my environment is susceptible to a ransomware attack. So we do have a scenario related to a ransomware blast radius, which typically identifies if tomorrow there is a ransomware attack, what would be the blast of that ransomware attack, till how many devices it can reach. We can also identify that particular scenario over here as well. Moving on to the next tab, which typically details you on one of the scenario, in fact, which is been shown over here and which we call it as typically a battleground. So this is one of the scenario related to Log4Shell, which we have already been actually already been shown you. And on this scenario, you can see on the screen, we have identified this information was, as you can see, like corporate network, secure zone network. So this information has been captured based on the sensors which has been deployed on your environment. And basis of that, we have captured that information and put it in a graphical format. For that, you will be able to understand how it has been identified. Now, we can also run the simulations over here. I'm just running it at the very fast speed, which will typically shows you if an attacker gets into your environment, how he will run these particular simulations from one machine to another machine by sending different attack techniques. As you can see, it has been sending an arrows like from one machine to another arrow to another machine, in fact, and there are different color schemes of the arrows which detects what are the different arrows, what are the different attack techniques which can be used, and the red dot denominates that yes, this is something can be compromised. Now on the left hand side, you can see how many compromise attack techniques which is being used typically to compromise your assets. You will also able to see that in all information. And below that, you will able to see how this particular simulation has been ran. Like what are the different arrows you choosing, what are the different attack techniques which is been used. You will also able to see that from which machine to uh, which machine it has also been raised. In fact, you're also able to see that information. Now, on these particular simulations, we have considered only 38 assets. Now, out of these 38 assets, I know there is only my critical asset is, I will also have to find out how many are my critical assets. So in this scenario, I found out there is only one critical asset, which is my critical asset, which is my a customer database servers. So is there any attack possible? As it is showing me a red dot, so that means there is a possibilities of attacks on this particular system. So if I click on it, it will show me what are the possible ways an attacker can gain an access to this particular machine itself. So now from this particular machine, which is being shown as a bridge point, Elizabeth machine, attacker can use either a E vulnerability, which is an exploitable vulnerability to gain an access to another machine, which is Steve's machine, or also he can use a proxy spoofing attack technique to gain an access to this machine. From this machine, he can either use a print nightmare vulnerability to gain an access to your mainframe server, which is your critical data, critical server. So we do identify a similar kind of an attack techniques on your environment. Not only that, there is also possibility where we can also identify what are the choke points. So these three are the choke points which is being shown in this particular example, which needs a remediation. So if I click over here and get into a report of this, so you will see what are the remediations to be carried out so that you will be able to block or prevent this particular attack. So now in this, what we have seen is a print nightmare vulnerability, proxy spoofing attack technique, and a vulnerability related to log4j, which needs to be remediated as well. How we have identified, if I click on the view remediations, it will tell me the detail of it. Say for the example, in this case, proxy spoofing technique, so it will tell you a technique descriptions over here. As you can see, like by what is the technique description, how it has been aligned. So all the attack techniques which you can see in our environment has been aligned with the Maitre framework attack techniques. So you can also see that Maitre framework attack techniques references over here. If you click on it, it will take you the reference URL over there. Similarly, what is it that proxy spoofing, how it can be also exploited, the information also been given over here. Now below that, you will see what are the affected entities. So out of which I can see there are around 5 entities which can be affected, but there is only one asset which is critical, which can be requires an urgent attention. So that means there is one choke point which needs to be remediated, which is this particular machine, which is the Steve's machine. Now, what are the remediations? Either you can use a remediations based on the disabling the WPAD clients, or maybe a best practices or a hardening, which can be also enabled on that particular machine so that we can also remediate or stop that attack happening on our environment itself. Now, again, if I click on it, you will see if you want to automate the change management, in fact, over here, so remediations, you can also do that. So here you can see add tasks, and we can very easily integrate with your ticketing tools like ServiceNow and Jira, and able to automate the entire change management process over here itself. Okay, again, going back to the same screen, and this is one of the attack technique related to proxy spoofing, and this is especially related to your log4j. Similarly, if I get into the another simulations, there are simulations related to ransomware blast, where similarly we will identify what are the different attack techniques which is typically being used, can be used by an attacker if there is a ransomware attack happen. So we'll give you details of that. Similarly, in case of AD, if it is related to AD, what are the different attack techniques which an attacker can use to gain an access to your critical assets as well. You will also able to see that information over here as well. So I just clicked on the critical assets just to show you. Now, if I get into the reports part of it, so you will also, so now in this case, as you can see, there are three critical assets which can be compromised, and which are the attack techniques. Typically add members to a group, add logon script, and reset user password technique, which is typically been used. So say for example, if I click on it, it will tell me how an attacker will travel from this particular machine to that particular machine, in a way how an attacker can gain an access. It also, you will also able to see that information. If I go into a reportings, you will see the information, what are the different attack techniques related to AD, which is being used over here. And if I click on the remediations, you will see the more detailed information. Again, in the same fashions, you will able to see how an attack technique has been aligned with the Maitri framework attack techniques. What is the attack commands, in fact, which can be also used. You will also able to see that information over here as well. And finally, we'll see all different reports, in fact, so attack techniques which can be seen over here. So it is not only related to your vulnerabilities, but there are, if I just click on the filter, you will see there are the techniques which is related to your Kubernetes, ADs, AWS, Azure, GCP, network vulnerabilities, and IT. Not only that, there are the different Maitri framework attack tactics which can be typically used to identify if an attacker can gain an access to your critical assets, critical data or not. And on the final slide, just to show you the utilization of the sensors, it's very minimal. If you ask me, you just see over here, like if I click on it, you will see on an average, the utilization is hardly 0.01% of CPU, and 30 MB of memory is something which is typically being used by our sensor. So I think that's it. A very short demo from my side. Over to you, Zaris.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all participants for being around for this whole event, as well as to the XM Cyber team, Kaustubh and Harshad. Thank you all so much for your efforts, everybody, and thank you for participating. If there are any more questions you'd like to have, you can reach out to us directly. We'd be more than happy to get in touch with you for XM Cyber. Thank you so much, and have a great day.